like to call this meeting of the Newark City Council to order. Autumn, please call the roll.
Mr. Rapp.
Here.
Mr. Roletta.
Here.
Mr. Blake.
Here.
Mr. Bubb. Here. Mr. Cox. Here. Mrs. Floyd.
Here.
Mr. Guthrie. Ms. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Johnson. And Mr. Marmee.
Here. Thank you. We'll be present this evening. Please rise for the invocation by Mrs. Floyd, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Could we all bow our heads and have a moment of silence for the 5 military men who died in Chattanooga, Tennessee, please, to start with? Almighty God, we ask that you be with the families and friends of those men who died in Chattanooga, Tennessee. One of those men had a connection to Licking County, grew up here, and still has family here. We ask that you be with them as they try to deal with this tragedy. We ask that you be with all the people here tonight who have worked so hard for one piece of legislation tonight. We thank them for coming, and we ask that you be with them as their lives continue to improve. We thank you for the ability to meet together, to make decisions for the city of Newark. We ask that you give us your guidance and wisdom as we make those decisions. We ask these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mrs. Floyd. Welcome to everyone. It's nice to see all your smiling faces this evening. Very nice. Next on the agenda, we have caucus. That's a chance for council to discuss anything that may be on the agenda this evening. Do we have anything? Mrs. Floyd?
I'd like to make a motion to excuse Mr. Guthrie and Mr. Johnson, please.
Second by Mr. Marmee. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. They're excused. Next on the agenda, we have the minutes of our July 6, 2015 Newark City Council meeting. Is there a motion to approve those? Motion. Motion by Mr. Rapp. Second by Mr. Bubb. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. That passes. Thank you. We have 2 reports this evening from standing committees, one from Finance and one from Street Committee. Without objection, those will be received and filed. We also have 2 reports from city officials, one from Stephen Johnson, our auditor, and one from Barb Jones, our city income tax administrator. Also, without objection, those will be received and filed. We have 1 petition this evening. A petition that was received to vacate an alley running south off of Wilson Street between 279 and 295 Wilson Street. That will also be received and filed. Under communications, we have 3 communications this evening. One from Rhonda Barber, one from Paul Moran, and one from Jeff Garson. Again, without objection, those will also be received and filed. Next on the agenda tonight, we have comments from citizens. There are 2 places for citizens' comments. One is now and one is after the legislation. This is basically not a question and answer period with council. This is just your chance to give your opinion if you'd like to let us know something. All we ask is you raise your hand so I can identify you, come forward, give us your name and address for the record. Is there anyone? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Leisha Farias, 116 Smithview Drive in Madison Township. I'm one of the facilitators of the Newark Think Tank on Poverty, and I want to thank you for your cooperation in listening to us and listening to the grassroots as we're asking for change in this community. So we really appreciate your listening ear and your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Tina Cole. I live at 743 McKinley Avenue in Newark, Ohio. I'll make this real brief. I just want to thank this council for taking the time on this legislation. I know Mr. Blake has worked very hard on this. I just want to say, taking this box on applications isn't just giving us a chance to get jobs. It's showing our community that the city is supporting us, that the city is backing us, and it's opening more doors. It's going to be easier for us to get housing, which is very hard to do. It's going to be easier for us to walk down the street with our head high, knowing that we have some sort of support in this community. I'll make one more point, which I made at the committee meeting that I spoke at. When we go to prison, we just don't sit around. We work our tails off. We work 40 hours a week in jobs. We're up and dressed and ready to go to work by 7 a.m. And then on top of our 40-hour-a-week jobs, we're in different types of schooling, recovery classes, Bible studies. We're getting our DDs. We're getting college degrees. We're bettering ourselves. We're Toastmasters. And that's all extracurricular on top of our 40-hour work week. And when we get out, we still have that structure in us that when we want to get out, we want to do good, we want to work, we want to support our families. And having a vote yes tonight is opening the doors for so many people to change their lives. We're going to be able to support our kids. We're going to be able to get decent housing. We're going to be able to raise our family the proper way. I'm just going to make one last point. Just one more. The last line in the Pledge of Allegiance, it says, with liberty and justice, we served our justice. We did our crime. We did our time. It says for all. It doesn't say except for convicted felons. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir. While he's making his way up, Autumn, would you call the roll?
Mr. Rath?
No.
Oh, just for Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson. Sorry.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Rodney Stiers. I'm 20 years old. I did some wrong things, in time, as some people do, and I'm trying to fix it up. And a lot of people, as it comes down to the point when they're trying to fix it up, you really kind of don't have no choice. You can't look into people's eyes and actually sit there and tell them or explain to them or show them the body language of who you are. As soon as they see that, as soon as they see that right there on your record, it's just put right up into your trash can, And I'm 20 years old. Some people are older, some people are younger, and it's so easy to go back to the old way of life, but some people who are trying to advance and some people that are trying to get out of this lifestyle, it's so easy to be knocked back out, and yet I don't know how to explain it. And I'll be honest, I just like this to be passed so that, people could be better off. People could actually have, a life without having to sit there and go out there and steal stuff, without having to sit out there and sell drugs, without sitting there and have to do drugs, and continuously. I could probably put another 100 things on top of that, and I'm sorry to anybody here if I'm actually being a little bit, I don't know, this is my first meeting, I'm sorry. And and I live at 115, I live at St. Vincent. I'm homeless because of stuff that I did, but I'm glad, because if I wouldn't have got taught then, but I just want to be able to advance in life. I want to actually be able to do it how everybody else does it. I know I messed up, and I really don't know how to say it to everyone. I just said I'm sorry, and I love if you guys could. It's hard out there, I guess, especially whenever you're done messed up, But thank you guys for listening, and I'm sorry if I'm not the best speaker.
Have a
good day.
Yes, sir. Nice job, young man.
My name Richard Cook. I stay at 224 West Locust. No costumes, no gimmicks tonight, just ordinary folks. But first of all, I'd like to say I'm honored to be in Licking County, and out of the 88 states, this I believe will be the 14th county. 88 counties, I believe this will be the 14th county passing this amendment, and it's a great start. And I just like to thank all you guys. I pretty much ran into all you guys, especially Mr. Blake. Just always trying to accept change. You know, you guys have a lot on y'all plate, and this is something different, but you guys embraced it, you know, and I believe it will pass tonight, not only for this, but other things dealing with the disenfranchised in the community. It's like a local, small city council that everybody knows everybody. I just wanted y'all to say thank you, and probably we'll be back in here sometime later with costume on again, but God bless you guys.
Testing. Well, I came here and I was adopted in this county April 4th.
Give us your name and address, please.
Michael Aaron Reynolds, 12984 Township Road 64, the son of Raymond Leon Reynolds. Being here, I'm glad for all the conflict that we've all faced, the differences in humanity and in the great evil. And it might sound opposite of what most people would conjure up in their mind as what is called so-called justice. But if it wasn't for the wars, if it wasn't for the pain, for the enslavement, for the differences, for the hatred and the racism and all these differences, we wouldn't be where we're at today. If it wasn't for Monsanto or the depopulation agenda, if it wasn't for any of that, we wouldn't be where we're at today, where humanity is at the point where we can excel, we can accelerate, and we can work together, look past our differences, or we can continue to play, capture the flag and just keep destroying ourselves within. And with the last note, I think that a house cannot stand divided against itself.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
My name is Justin Coleman, live on 151 Rugg Avenue, Newark, Ohio. I just kind of wandered in because I heard about this on social media and thought this was something I should be a part of. Because to kind of echo a few things that people said here, a lot of the things we do learn. We're not just sitting in there watching TV and playing cards and things like that. I got locked up when I was 17 years old, and I did 14 years. Everything I am, I learned from inside there. My work ethic, the skill sets that I have available, college education, all of that were things that I worked on the inside, including Toastmasters and the different organizations, that allowed me to have, basic speaking skills. And I've been home almost 4 years now, and I can honestly say I've never once been late to work, just because, call it the benefits of institutionalization. I'm afraid to be late. I'm afraid to not do my job correctly. But when I first came out, I didn't dress up for this. This is my work clothes. But I didn't start off here. When I first came home, I couldn't get a job making pizzas. Because a box set, the people at Donato's were interviewing me, and they get to the page that has the box on. They're like, I didn't see you check that. Man, I'm sorry to have wasted all your time here. The basic things, the things that we work so hard towards to come back out and be a part of society again. We know the things that we do are wrong. We're not supervillains. We're not, complete maniacs. We know the difference between right and wrong. The difference is everybody's telling us to come home, be a citizen, pay your taxes, do the right things. And every roadblock you can imagine to prevent us from doing that is in our way. And not everybody is able to kind of sneak their way into an interview and work their way around the box to make an impression first, to actually become a person, not just a piece of paper. So they never get a chance to present themselves. They never get a chance to bring their qualities to bear, to possibly get that job, to prosper. The box is unnecessary. It's an outdated modem. That's what background checks are for. If there's something specific to a field like childcare or sales or something where you're dealing with, let them interview. Let the background check determine whether or not their specific crime removes them from that particular job. Just not from working in general. Because a lot of the things that people miss is the incarceration is the consequence for our actions. That's the punishment. That's us paying the piper. This isn't about, keeping keeping this box is about continuing that punishment. It's easy for us to drop the things that made us criminals in the first place. We know it's wrong. We don't want to be that way. What's hard is getting that step in the door where we can get past that, where we can actually be citizens, where we can show the people the things that we've learned from rehabilitation, which is what the entire process is about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is William Salyer. I reside at 9521 Outville Road, Kirkersville, Ohio. Wow. What could I say that hasn't already been said? A lot of good things said here this evening. Amongst the reentry community and addicts alike, we have so much potential, so many skills, but we lack the ambition, I guess, to pursue said goals, simply because we know the stigma that falls upon us, and just the lack of morale when knowing the difficulty in finding a job in today's workplace, wanting to hit the ground running and do what's necessary. It is difficult to persevere. So, with this, banning the box, that will alleviate more stress than you could possibly imagine. It's a fair chance. It's an open, equal opportunity situation. We do recover. We do, have rehabilitation. We have rehabilitated. I'm proof of that. So many of us here this evening are proof of that. I say with great humility, a twice convicted felon, clean and sober, for almost 4 years. And to have this legislation passed would be just such a wonderful opportunity for all of us. Not just the person seeking employment, but the aid in the aid in the community that it'll provide. And with the unemployment rate. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Anything else to wrap this up, ma'am?
Good evening. My name is Alicia Sickles. I reside currently at the Courage House, but my permanent address will be 18.5 Walnut Street here in Newark, Ohio. I'm also a convicted felon, about to be graduating the Courage House in 9 days. I'm asking that you guys vote yes on banning the box. As a convicted felon, I do have a lot of ambition, as most of us do. I'm also a single parent. I have shared parenting with my baby's father. And at the same time, I also pay child support. When we fill out a job application and there's that box that says, have you ever been convicted of a felony? It's like, oh my God, there's only one line to write what I did wrong there. It makes it difficult. A lot of us choose to not even mark anything and lie on the application, which then it creates another problem for being dishonest. And then it justifies our previous behaviors, and it puts us back out in the community jobless, doing what we were doing before, mind you, selling drugs, using drugs, stealing, things like that. We would just like a chance, to be able to prove ourselves to the community. It would make for, better possibilities for us. And in the same sense, even not having a job, being on welfare, we're not getting enough either. And in order to get assistance cash-wise, you can't get that unless you're pregnant. Other than that, with all I've got to say is, the struggles are really hard. They're real, and for the box to be banned would be an absolute pleasure. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else have any other comments this evening on same? Ma'am, are you on the same subject? We'll do you, and then we'll do Mr. McElfresh.
My name is Donna Gibson, and I live at 1858 Stanhope Drive. I could stop this, and I apologize. Ran out of my office too late today to bring my paper that I typed up. So I do apologize for that. I am the coordinator for Bridges Out of Poverty and Parent Support Mental Health America of Lincoln County. I'm also a member of the Newark think tank, which I'm very proud of. Over the past 3 years, I've worked with many individuals and families, the majority of people being at or below 200% of the poverty threshold. Each person has fears, hopes, and dreams, not just for themselves, but for their family. The Ban the Box bill will change one of many issues which lead to sleepless nights and personal fear for the survival people within my community. You look into someone's eyes who has worked so hard to overcome their past and is doing such an amazing job, and then you see them ready to give up because the box included on the application just eliminated them from attaining a job they desperately need. The Ban the Box bill is much like a labeling machine because once you check it, you're automatically labeled as rejected and you become discarded. As a community, we consistently tell people, hey, if you want a job, there's always one available. And when people apply for a job, their application is deleted or tossed aside due to the past mistakes they have made. There is no argument that some of the mistakes individuals have made are very serious and can have long-term effects. However, if we want our communities to heal and become stronger, there has to be a point where people are given second chances. Not every individual who is charged with a misdemeanor or a felony set out to intentionally break a law. We have to stop to realize that life happens to each one of us, and many times there is no support of any type available for help. There is no excuse for bad behaviors, but if you look close enough, there may be a reason for it. One such person who will forever stand out in my mind, her name was Susie, and I can't give you her last name. I promised her parents I wouldn't. She and I met at a trauma group. We were both trying to be survivors, if that's what you call it. She didn't fare as well as I did. The problem is she started self-medicating, and I worked in an office and I worked with friends who kind of helped pick me back up and stop me from doing just that. Well, she caught a charge. She caught that felony, and she wasn't sure exactly what she was supposed to do. She lost the job she had because she couldn't go for a period of time because of the trauma. She couldn't sleep at night and so forth. So when she tried to get another job, they said because she had the felony, she wasn't going to get that job. Well, about 1.5 years ago, my friend took her life. And I'm not saying she took her life because of this box, but it sure did make a barrier that never should have been there. She should have had the opportunity to express what happened and why it happened. Had an employer of any type heard her reasoning, they would have understood that. But because that box was on there, she was blown off. So once again, I'm not going to say the box is the problem, but it sure did lead to it. I also believe that there is so much potential. I work with the Bridges and the Getting Ahead people, many of which, if you look around the room, are doing phenomenal. And all they want is a chance to go to work. They want a chance to show you what they're made of. And they want a chance to be able to stand on their own 2 feet. They're not asking for somebody else to do it. So I'm asking you to please pass to make that box go away, because it should never be on the applications again.
Thank you.
That's a hard bunch to follow.
Yes.
But I promise I won't take as much of your time as I did the last time I spoke before them. Dave McElfresh, 153 North 39th Street in Newark, President of IFF Local 109, speaking tonight pertaining concerns of public safety regarding Ordinance 15-20, which seeks to abolish one captain position in the fire department. In part, the ordinance states to enhance operational efficiency. The 8th captain position that they seek to abolish was created in 2005, which included the creation of a training captain position. And I looked up online through the archives the minutes from the Personnel Committee, January 31st, 2005, where Fire Chief Jack Stickrat discussed the creating of this position. He said last year, and I quote, "Last year we separated training and EMS positions and have tried this system for about a year now. Both of these are so important because of the liabilities and mandated training, insurance programs, protocols, continuing education are just too much for one individual to handle. Captain Van Winkle has been working on training. A lot of the rules are increasing. Mandates give no options when it comes to training. Firefighters have to maintain continuing education." And that's, I won't read the whole thing, that's just in part. And again, that's available online from the committee meeting on January 31st, 2005. In 2010, the state of Ohio began requiring continuing education for firefighters that, as of now, is 54 hours in a 3-year cycle that they did not have in 2005 when the training captain was established. Also, a paramedic continuing education is currently 86 hours in a 3-year cycle. A fire inspector needs 30 hours continuing education in a 3-year cycle. And an instructor 6 hours continuing ed plus 24 hours of instruction. My point being that training is a paramount part of our profession. It was important enough in 2005 to dedicate a captain position to oversee our entire fire and EMS training. And I must note a captain position that both Fire Chief Connor and Safety Director Spurgeon served in during their tenure when they were a captain on the fire department. This is not simply a desk job, as all of our members are expected to provide fire and EMS service when needed, and can and do respond on calls, assume command responsibilities such as incident command, safety, or accountability officer on a fire scene, and provide fire and emergency care when available to assist with runs that occur. Our job is not getting easier. The skills needed have increased significantly in just the last decade. And I understand that the budget is tight, but is fire and EMS training really where you want to cut? Now, it's been said that training is certainly a priority. We will just have other officers assume the responsibility of training. We've continually heard from our fire chief and our safety director, not just the union, that our firefighters are doing more and more with less, and that we are extremely busy. However, their answer is to put this additional training responsibility on our other officers who are already being asked to do more with less. That all being said, even with all those concerns, knowing that the city can do this if they so choose, all the union asked was if they insist on abolishing a higher ranking position, that they would at least create a lower ranking position or additional firefighter positions with the savings by abolishing the captain in order to try to increase or at least maintain service and public safety. The answer was no. We cannot guarantee you anything. Then why would we abolish what was deemed an important, needed position, replace it with nothing, and say we are enhancing operational efficiency? I speak in opposition to the abolishment of the position, and thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to ordinances on the second reading, 15-19.
Ordinance 15-19 by Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, an ordinance amending the chapter section 220.02 of the codified ordinances of the City of Newark, Ohio to establish a policy of fair hiring.
You've heard the second reading of 15-19. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Mr. Blake?
move to adopt 1519.
Motion by Mr. Blake. Second by the group. Mrs. Floyd? Is there any discussion on 15-19?
Mr. President, I first want to say, it's been a pleasure to work with the group of people that are out in this audience tonight. Members of the North Think Tank, Alicia, Allen, Eric there, several of you, and then also with Donna Gibson and her group from the Bridges Out of Poverty group. This is an issue in our community that deals with a segment of our population that needs that second chance. And so I'm very proud to say that I'm going to be supporting this tonight, and hope that my colleagues support this tonight, and that the city will at least remove that question from our application after this evening. Forgive me, I got to get my thoughts together, because it's quite an emotional issue because I have members of my own family that are in similar situations as to people sitting in this audience. So, just don't think that this just affects you. This affects people in our families as well. So there's several people within our city that have been through experiences that you've gone through, and this is just a great piece of legislation that's talking about jobs, getting people that are potential employees to get them with potential employers and make that connection. And that's really what we want to do, is to get them in that interview room so that they can see what skill sets there are and if they're become a valuable employee to get that chance. So I really see that as a momentum, a very good piece. I do have to say some thank yous. Director Sasson, first of all. We've had quite a few lunches over this topic, and now we're finally to the moment where we can finally vote on it and have the final vote tonight. I sort of stole his term because he used the term delay the box, in which this is what it does, and we're not necessarily banning it, but we're moving that background until later on in the process. But I do want to thank Director Sasson for meeting with me and working with me on drafting the legislation. And then also Director Buskirk. I know he's sitting back there in the corner, but he came and attended a meeting at Lick Memorial Hospital, which the Newark Think Tank on Poverty had hosted, and so I appreciate your support on this legislation as well, Mike. But we're really talking about momentum here. We know that there is, this just affects city employment, this legislation before us tonight. And so what we're really sending to our private employers in our community is to join the movement. We know that Denison University is supportive. We know that Lick Memorial Hospital is supportive. But hopefully this will send a message to other private employers, the people that are actually hiring. I mean, the city really isn't hiring right now. And so we're really looking at people that are hiring and able to make that, give that chance to people to get that job, is to look, here's some major employers in our community that have taken this step. Can you follow suit? I mean, legislation could pass in Columbus if needed be, but really this could be a voluntary thing. I mean, people could really voluntarily remove this from their job applications. So hopefully out of the news media and the buzz that has been created around this legislation, they'll be able to view that and say, let's do that in our own organization, our own institutions, and join these other groups in our community and give people a second chance to move forward. Lastly, I want to say is that we know that a third of our population in our city is in poverty, and there's so many different agencies that work together on issues of poverty, from our probation departments to Mental Health America to behavioral health care partners. There's so many, which behavioral health care partners is your Spencer House, your Courage House, Mound Builders. So we know that there are issues dealing with addictions, dealing with just mental health issues in general, depression, severe anxiety, things of that nature. But all these things come together when we connect people who have an issue to professionals who are able to provide a service and develop that relationship. We know that we have to develop relationships between our citizens and the people that provide services, and this is another way in order to tell that story and to get those stories out is through the testimony that you provided tonight, and hopefully as this momentum continues, you'll provide more testimony to more people, because the storytelling that you all share, not only tonight but through all the events that we've been through, is the most powerful thing that I have seen through this whole several month process that we've been through. And so I just want to say thank you for your courage tonight, thank you for your work, and I'm glad to support the Newark Think Tank on Poverty. And Tina, you looked good in that article on Saturday. So with that, I pass, Mr. Blake.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Anyone else like to speak on 15-19? Okay, Autumn, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie? Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Marmee?
Yes. 15-19 passes 9-0. You are welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting. I got kind of sensing this might be why you were here. We'll give you a minute if you'd like to leave. If not, you're welcome to stay.
I was. I know. Yeah, you were. I was so wrong.
Thank you for coming. Hey guys, thank you.
Sorry for Good
luck, man. It's completely out of order, but make it quick.
Larry Green, I work with 7 reentry committees, work 32 counties, retired from the system, former deputy warden, and I work with these guys every day and girls. There's 24,000 released every year, and only 27% of them are returning because we have to provide 9 particular things that they need when they get out. And some of the things have been mentioned today, but employment is almost number 1. And you just provided another source of employment here. So there's 128 returning to Licking County in the next 6 months from one of our 30 prisons. I just wanted to let you know that. So thanks again.
Thank you. Next we have 15-20 on.
Ordinance 15-20 by Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, an ordinance amending the position authorization tables of the City of Newark Division of Fire by reducing the position of captain by 1 through attrition, resulting in a strength authorization of 7.
You've heard the second reading of 15-20. What is your wish?
Mr. President.
Mrs. Floyd.
Make a motion to adopt 15-20.
Motion by Mrs. Floyd.
Second.
Second by Mr. Bub. Any discussion on 15-20?
Just that the fire chief has basically said that he can move the work around so it can be done by 7 captains instead of 8. And for that reason, I will be supporting this.
Any other discussion on 15-20? Seeing none, Autumn, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta? No. Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie? Ms. Hall?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
15-20 passes 7-2. Next, we have ordinances on the first reading, 15-23.
Ordinance 15-23 by Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath. It's an ordinance to provide for the issuance of $1,120,000 of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of paying the cost of various street and parking lot improvements, sidewalk construction, and lighting improvements, and all necessary appurtenances thereto, and declaring an emergency.
15-23 is on the first reading, but it is an emergency. What is your wish?
Mr. President.
Mr. Blake.
Move to adopt 15-23.
Motion by Mr. Blake. Second by Mr. Cost. Is there any discussion on 15-23? Autumn, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie? Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
15-23 passes 9-0. Next, we have resolutions on the second reading, 15-24.
Resolution 15-24 by Mr. Cost, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, Mr. Marmee, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of the municipal corporation with regard to the retention of outside legal counsel.
You've heard the second reading of 15-24. What is your wish?
Mr. President.
Mrs. Floyd.
Make a motion to adopt 15-24.
Second. Motion by Mrs. Floyd, second by Mr. Bub. Is there any discussion on 15-24?
This is something we do periodically, so.
Anything else? Autumn, please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
No.
Mr. Blake?
No.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie? Ms. Hall?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
15-24 passes 6-3. Next, we have 15-61.
Resolution 15-61 by Mr. Cost, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating and disappropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
You've heard the second reading of 15-61. What is your wish?
Mr. President.
Mrs. Floyd.
Make a motion to adopt 15-61.
Motion by Mrs. Floyd. Second by Mr. Cost. Is there any discussion on 15-61? Mr. Martin?
I'd like to make a motion to separate out sections 6 and 7. And then be a separate.
So we'd like to vote on 1 through 5.
Right, and then make 6 and 7, resolution 15-61A or something.
Okay. You're making that motion to
Yes.
separate?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Bub. Do I need a vote? I need a roll call vote on that? Okay. Is there any discussion on separating these?
Mr. President, usually, and I don't think we've done this in a while, but usually that's a courtesy to a council member if they would like that legislation separated.
Sure. Any other discussion? Autumn, please call the roll to vote on separating 15-61 and 61A as discussed.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie? Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
So 15-61 will be 1 through 5. I believe we've already had a motion to adopt that in a second. Is there any discussion on 1 through 5, 15-61? Please call the roll vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie? Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
15-61, 1 through 5 passes. Now we're going to have 15-61A, number 6 and 7. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, Autumn, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
No.
Mr. Blake?
No.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie? Ms. Hall?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Marmee?
No.
I have that as
5 to 4.
5 to 4, so that does not pass.
Wait, no, there's 5 yeses and 4 no's.
But it has to be 6
Oh.
yeses.
Oh, right, okay,
So
sorry.
15-61, A does not pass. Okay, now we have 15-63.
Resolution 15-63 by Ms. Hall, Mr. Cost, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of municipal corporation.
You've heard the second reading of 15-63. What is your wish?
Mr. President,
Hall?
motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt by Ms. Hall. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Johnson. Is there any discussion on 15-63? Seeing none, Autumn, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie? Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Marmee?
No.
15-63 passes 8 to 1. Right. Next, we have resolutions on the first reading, 15-65.
Resolution 15-65 by Mr. Cost, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating monies for the current expenses of municipal corporation.
15-65 will be held for a second reading. Next, we have 15-66.
Resolution 15-66 by Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, a resolution appropriating and disappropriating monies for current expenses of the municipal corporation.
15, Mr. Blake.
Mr. President, move to waive the 2-day reading rule on 1566.
Motion by Mr. Blake to waive the 2-day reading rule. Second by Mrs. Floyd. Mr. Blake.
There's a timeline related to the software purchase in this, and the chief would like to get it done as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Autumn, please call the roll to waive the 2-day reading rule on 15-66.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie? Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
2-day reading rule has been waived. Mr. Blake.
Mr. President, move to adopt 1566.
Motion to adopt by Mr. Blake. Second by Mrs. Floyd. Is there any other discussion now on 15-66 to adopt? Seeing none, Autumn, please call the roll to vote.
Mr. Rath?
Yes.
Mr. Roletta?
Yes.
Mr. Blake?
Yes.
Mr. Bub?
Yes.
Mr. Cost?
Yes.
Mrs. Floyd?
Yes.
Mr. Guthrie? Ms. Hall?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
And Mr. Marmee?
Yes.
15-66 passes 9-0. Last on the legislation this evening, we have 15-67.
Resolution 15-67 by Mr. Cost, Mr. Marmee, Mrs. Floyd, Mr. Rath, a resolution of intent to vacate a portion of a 16.5-foot wide alley as shown on the plat of the John R. Hughes Edition, as recorded in Plat Book 3 at page 13 of the Licking County Plat Records, located between properties at 279 and 295 Wilson Street.
15-67 will be held for a second reading. And that concludes our legislation this evening. Thank you so much for your attention. Next, we have the second opportunity for comments from citizens. Same rules apply. Again, this is not a question and answer period with council. This is just your opportunity to give us your opinion. Do we have anyone? Yes, sir.
For the record, I'm Michael Aaron Reynolds. Before I was adopted into the Reynolds family, I wanted to know more about my family history. As far as my father, David E. Jones, used to live in this town. He was on shock probation back in the early 90s. He's currently, according to my current knowledge, is in Florida prison. He had a Jewish wedding. He was married to a Catholic. And my grandfather, Dennis Diamond, he was a Marine, and there's a lot about my family that I started learning, and I started learning that through the going to AA meetings and stuff of that nature, that there are many people that have a drive to make certain dreams come true. As far as there were example in Congress and laws back in the 1800s. I always believed that Mother Nature's always had it right, and a mother's wisdom and a father's strength has always been a key to us moving forward with advances in technology, advances in science, advances in religion. I think they go hand in hand. And for somebody, there's the gay rights, or there's the so-called before you act that I know that's been brought up, and people. You can know all the secrets there is to national security, CIA, Mossad, ISIS, and say you even have all that knowledge. It's not about blackmailing anybody. It's not about any of that. It's about, hey, you know what? I was at the trap house. I was brought there by a gentleman named Scott. And, I did do methamphetamines, and I did look at pornography, which in today's society would be deemed inappropriate. But on the other side, it's like, why are we going to all play peekaboo with each other when it comes down to it? We need some of the original principles as building up food, healthy food and water. 1800, from the age 12 and up, you could pass on your seed. They called it intergenerational sex. It's about keeping the bloodline going, keeping this world alive. And whether people would want to believe that or not, it's a proven fact. That's what our Bible is based off of, and many ancient religions. And we can sit here and we can blow our worlds up or nuke each other or kill each other, or we can realize that most of the times that people hate is because they feel like they're not understood. They feel like you see young children today, they know more than what I did growing up. I didn't even know what Spencer's was until I was 16 years old. And times are changing. There are things that are happening that that people just need to understand. And I think the less judgmental that we are, and the more we are open to the idea that people are different. People have different opinions. People have different perspectives, and that's what makes this the greatest country in the world. Is that we all together, you can call it a melting pot, you can call it the end of the world, you can call it depopulation, you can call it whatever it wants, but because we've been through all that, because of all the pedophilia rings that's run by the government, because of all that, we are here at this moment to realize that things can get better. And thank God all the abuse I went through. Thank God for all the genetic experiments I went through, and all the stuff that that it's too terrible to mention here that happened to me as a child. But because of that, and no justification to say that that's right to do, but because of that, it's given me this extraordinary ability to see that we can all help each other. I shot up what's called methamphetamines. I like to call it limitless. And it has given me the ability to accelerate to an extent is likened to ADD medication, to be able to see what the real problems are, to be able to have knowledge that even masonry and even Congress is not even aware of, and I'll leave it real short after this. When an economy or a people have been enslaved, according to the ancient teachings, they were shaved, their hair was cut. The hair is an extension of the nervous system. It's our connection to spirituality. And even George Bush and even Obama, we're all slaves. We're all slaves to each other. They said the Illuminati. They're slaves too, because ultimate power is the ultimate enslavement. And maybe they're wanting to free people too, because they're tired of living like that, and they want other people to forgive them. And with that, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Frazier.
Now that's a tough act to follow. Mark Frazier, 20 West North Street, Newark, Ohio. I'm here to talk to you tonight a little bit about public safety, a little bit about banning the box. Congratulations, thank you for banning the box. It's a great initiative, but I also want to point to the fact that it is the beginning and not the end of getting people off of addiction, into recovery, and into job placement. And so I encourage you guys to look at initiatives that involve public-private partnerships with employers to get skilled trades out of prisons and into the workforce and with local companies. And so I think that is the next step in the right direction, is out of treatment programs, out of jails. How do we get these people employed? And what skills can we transfer from the incarcerations into the workplace locally? And so I encourage the administration to always do what they always do, which is great work. And hopefully there can be progress in alleviating the 1/3 that's in poverty, and seeing the rehabilitation process go to fulfillment, where there's not reentry into jails. As far as public safety is concerned, 15-20, the removal of the 8th captain, I listened to Mr. McElfresh's speech about the issue, and I did a lot of research about the part-time issue that's going on. And so from my calculation, 315 call-ins in a 6-month time period, spent $211,000. That's about $35,000 a month. So with the delay that we have from it being tabled on August 10th, we're looking at about $70,000 that is going to be spent on overtime rates. And looking at the figures of $12 an hour approximately for a part-time firefighter, 315 call-ins, 12-hour shifts, we're looking at $47,000. $47,000 versus $211,000. $5,000 startup cost for any new firefighter. Let's say you have 15 of them. That's $35,000. So you're looking at about $80,000 versus $211,000. And so as we have this tabled legislation, we continue to rack up the overtime costs. We don't have increases in public safety, and we continue to bear the burden on these firefighters working overtime rates instead of fixing with a solution that was the only solution that was presented. So you have 28 shifts to bring 2 firefighters on a week, 14 shifts, 12 hours. And so I'd like to see a plan in place. I would like to see the legislation voted on, yes or no, and I would like to see the progress in our public safety. I don't think that having one captain that's dedicated to training will increase public safety versus 15 part-time firefighters. And so I encourage you guys to pass the legislation and pass it quickly so we can have better safety for the right cost. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Anyone else in this last section? Mr. Moran?
Thank you. Now, Paul Moran, 63 North 4th Street. I have 5 items here to share with you. With the Madison Township Fire Department, now that they're closed down, more than ever, the East Side Newark Fire Station should not be closed at all. The reason for this is they were right in our backyard on 51 1st Street Northeast. Now that Hanover is going to be covering that, of course that station is going to be shut down for 2 whole months. Their station, they got a station on New Home Drive and another one out on Gray Shot Road. So you're going to look at a time difference of downtown Newark Fire Station and Hanover coming in to provide service on fires and EMS. When Madison was right there, 3 to 5 minutes, they were right here. That much closer to us, right in our backyard. So, we need to keep that station open more than ever now, since they're gone. Now, on the good side, Newark Township has put into service 2 brand new trucks. So that's a plus there for our neighbor to the north. So it's good to hear that. And the Heath is supposed to get some new equipment too for too long. So that's good too. H&W office machines here downtown is closed. They're no longer operating out of the store there, so we got another empty storefront. But they're still in business. We're using a phone number and post office box, and I'll leave all that information here with everybody. But we keep. I've never seen so many empty storefronts in 1 year as I have this year in all my years I can recall. I mean, they're just everywhere, just empty storefronts. Nothing's going in. We're not promoting, bringing businesses, restaurants or anything. They're just sitting empty month after month. And we got dilapidated buildings too as well. The former county savings building out on East Main and Liberty was recently torn down, and now it's been cleared out. There were several car lots that was on that property over the years. I was surprised to see that last week that it was gone, the building. I had no idea that it was going to be torn down after a number of businesses that had been in there. Yesterday's Advocate on their Thrive series that they have ongoing, Keeping It Local. I mean, it was a fairly decent article, but they've left out some important businesses locally. Velvet Ice Cream, the credit unions, trash haulers, and pizza shops all contributed greatly to our economy. You know, a lot of these companies are born, established right here in the city. I mean, the trash haulers, they help us out with events by providing dumpsters. And, it could be, Shackleford, could be Atkins, could be any of these companies that are locally right here that are doing things in the community to help us out. But, the pizza shops, at least half of them are locally owned. The other half are chains. So that's a good thing, too. And, get out there and support our local folks that are doing their best to keep employment and stuff going here in the city. And credit unions, they're also involved in the community. So it's good to have these companies, and I wish they would have been mentioned in that article yesterday, besides the big major companies that we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brennan. Ma'am.
Leda Scanlon, 182 North Gay Street. I finally got my playground together. The rain did not beat us. So I would like to invite everyone, the mayor, the law director, city council. August 5th is our ribbon cutting, but I have let the children go ahead and start playing. So they're not just waiting for you guys to come out to cut the ribbon. But we're going to have it August the 5th. Washington Square, 425 Washington Street, and it's going to be August 5th from 12:30 to 5. Thank you.
Playing as long as it's not raining, correct?
Rain or shine.
There we go. I like that. Anyone from the administration? Oh, one more.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Go ahead. I thought we were done with this comment. If you have a comment, come on up.
Anna Reel, 1293 Granville Road. This is just kind of a direction to what we were talking about, the overtime for the firemen. And I did mention that we should look at, when do they get overtime? If they don't work a full 48 hours, are they entitled to get and I know there's contracts with the unions and everything, but one thing I have not heard is, has there been a review of what is causing all this overtime? In other words, does management look and says to one fireman, you have missed so many days within so many months? And the ones that are getting a lot of overtime, has anyone considered, are they the ones that have another part-time job elsewhere where they're maybe too tired? And so that's just something I'm just putting out there. Has anyone considered studying what is causing this overtime? And if so, and if anyone, and I'm not saying that they would take advantage of it, but they could. Is there any, thing done about it? Because $211,000, what, in 6 months, I believe it is, am I wrong? But 6 months, that's a lot of money. That's other jobs that we could be employing and getting somebody else that's looking for a job out. But I haven't heard anything about that. It's like it's okay to go ahead and pay that. And I would think that if we have some abuse that is causing that, then that there's some kind of consequence for that. And I do appreciate what the police officers and our firemen do. I think they deserve all the compensation that they do get, though they have some tough jobs, especially our police officers. So please don't think that I'm standing here saying that we've got some corruption, but sometimes it could be something that it's certain people that continually call off, causing overtime. And I'm just wondering if that's ever been researched. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone from the administration this evening? Our esteemed Auditor, Mr. Johnson.
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Most Honorable Law Director Saxon.
Mr. President, I'll pass.
Thank you, Director Saxon. Mayor Hall.
I will pass also. Thank you.
We'll go to miscellaneous. Mr. Rath, you're first this evening.
Thank you. Just a couple of things I wanted to talk about. First off, on the legislation on the delay of the box, I just wanted to congratulate all the people that came in today. You guys did an excellent job of representing yourselves and representing your wants and your needs, and I appreciate that. I personally am encouraged by all the programs. I think I'm terrible with names. Tina, correct? Okay, Tina, I think you were the one that had all the certificates of all the things that you had done. That's encouraging, and I'm proud of your accomplishments. That's great. This is a very small obstacle that we've removed from you today. I wish you luck. Good luck. As far as the firefighters overtime, the administration came to us with a solution that they wanted to research. They didn't necessarily come to us with a solution. They came to us with an idea, asking us if it was okay for them to look into this idea. And unfortunately, the safety committee said, no, don't look at that idea. We don't want you to even look at it. So I had some other people approach me, firefighters, EMS personnel, and made another suggestion. And I don't know if this is an option or not. I don't know if the safety committee will allow us to research this or not. But, if our firefighters are so overworked with all the overtime, let's let the firefighters do what they do best. Let's let them fight fires. And we have EMS billing. Let's take our EMS billing and see if there's an option where we could contract out our EMS services. That'll eliminate a lot of overtime. That'll eliminate a lot of the training needs Mr. McElfresh expressed concern over tonight. I don't know if that's a viable option or not, but maybe the safety committee will allow us to look into that option since they wouldn't let us allow us to look into part-time firefighters. Just an idea, just throwing it out there. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Rath. Mr. Roletta?
Thank you, Mr. President. I was mentioned, I think it was the personnel committee that Mr. Rath meant to mention, but with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Roletta. Mr. Blake?
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I just want to say that I think that, thankful for the action that was taken tonight at council with the ban the box. I think I think that was a great action for us to take and to show some leadership within our community. So I appreciate the support of members of council on that legislation. My understanding is that we have a meeting, several members of council have a meeting with Director Spurgeon and Chief Connor this Thursday at 11:30 in this room. And with there being so many numbers of people, on that meeting that I guess it's considered a public meeting. So that's 11:30 here on Thursday. Carol shaking her head. So I understand we're going to have some discussion about part-time and more into that, to that from the email exchanges that I saw. So looking forward to that discussion. And then I'm hosting a meeting on the 30th at the library at 5:30, July 30th at the library at 5:30. And this is more going to the basics of getting input from our constituents and getting input from our stakeholders. I mean, we've heard comments, and we will hear comments from the city officials, administration. We've heard comments from union officials, but really we need to open up and engage our public as to what ideas, as Mr. Rath even tonight has shared another idea, what ideas are there out there that we can consider? What are things that can be considered? And one proposal has been presented, but let's broaden it. Let's open it up and see what other ideas are out there. There's no reason for us to start just with one idea of part-time. There's this issue of EMS. There's an issue of hiring the budgeted amount. There's other ideas out there. And so we want to be welcoming and be inviting to people to come to the library on July 30th at 5:30 to share their ideas. And we want to collect that information and share it with everybody. And with that, I'll call a Finance Committee meeting for next committee night, and with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Blake. Mr. Buck?
I'll pass, thank you.
Mr. Cost?
When the Personnel Committee tabled the decision on whether to investigate part-time firefighters, from my point of view, the answer wasn't no. The answer was that we want time to get the information that we need from the administration and from the firefighters union, so that when we vote, we're informed about what we're voting. We have an educated vote to offer. I think the time that's been allowed has been helpful. I've received a lot of information, and I know on the 23rd and the 30th we're going to receive more. So I think it's a positive thing, and then I think it'll go to a vote and we'll move on from there. So I thought the tabling was a strong idea. I thought it was a good idea to give everybody a chance to get the information that we need to make the right decision. With that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Mr. Cost. Mrs. Floyd?
I just want to say again, we did not say we couldn't research it. We said we were delaying the vote till August the 10th to give us more time to get more information about it. I know, and to Mr. Frazier's point, we wouldn't be saving money right now anyhow, because number one, we're not that far. I mean, if we pass this, it will give Chief Connor the opportunity to look into it. It will take some time to look into it and to see, what all it means, what all it encompasses, how we're going to do it, how those people would be used and everything. So we're not talking in terms of saving dollars right now at this particular point. And to Mrs. Reel's point about overtime, I'm a retired school teacher, okay? And after I retired, I started substitute teaching, which I see is like filling in for a firefighter, because I filled in for a lot of people over the time. And most of the people did not misuse their time. They have sick time. They have, we used to have personal days to be used if a friend died and you wanted to go to the funeral, or your child was graduating from college in the middle of May and you wanted the opportunity to take a day and go to the college. So I don't see it as people misusing. I'm not saying nobody ever does, but I'm just saying that's where I see it. I want to congratulate Jeremy and all the people who were here. You did a wonderful job, Tina. The Band the Box, I think, is a wonderful thing from our community, and it's certainly something that hopefully a number of other businesses will include in their strategies as they are hiring people, because there are a lot of people in our community who need the opportunity to have a chance to get a job and to tell their story. And finally, on a very happy note, I don't know how many of you have the opportunity to come to Final Fridays downtown. I'm a member of the Downtown Newark Association, but Final Fridays are a wonderful way for you and for anyone who comes to see what all's going on in downtown Newark. I know parts of it are a mess now and will continue to be a mess for a couple of years, and when it's done, it's going to be wonderful, and we're going to be, looking at wonderful things. On July 31st, which is a week from this Friday, the final Friday for July, and it follows over into August the 1st. There is a history tour on Friday. There is an art walk downtown. And there is a quilt show at First Presbyterian Church. That just happens to be my church. But we had enough quilts that it covered every single pew, the organ, everything in the church, and with our stained glass windows, it's a beautiful scene. Even if you're not a quilt person, just walk in for 5 minutes and see how gorgeous it looks with all those quilts. We had a great reception last year. It's going to be on Friday, and then it will continue over into Saturday. There are signs around town, so please think about coming to downtown for Final Friday and realizing there are things happening in downtown Newark. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Floyd. Ms. Hall?
Mr. President, I'd like to call a capital improvement meeting for next week.
Okay.
That'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Johnson?
I'll pass.
And Mr. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to, first of all, congratulate the folks that were here this evening and the work that they did in order to make sure that their issue went forward. And I applaud them on their bravery and their courage in telling their stories. Want to also talk about my vote. I am in support of Mr. Buskirk and the legislation as far as having the contract services for attorneys. My vote no is because I just feel that we cannot raid the budget stabilization fund any longer. We need to find ways in order to find that $10,000, and I just feel that taking it from the budget stabilization fund is not a prudent thing to do. We have already taken a huge amount from that fund this year, and during the budget process, I indicated that we cannot utilize that as an appropriated balance. It is very dangerous, and so that was my reason for not supporting that particular piece of legislation. I do appreciate all of council separating that out in order for me not to turn down the rest of the legislation that was needed and being able to support that portion of it and still have my vote against a particular portion of that. And with that, I pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merman. Autumn wrote me a note that today is her anniversary, so you might want to tell Autumn happy anniversary, apparently.
And tomorrow is somebody's birthday.
Yeah,
And tomorrow is Mrs. Floyd's birthday. Isn't that nice? Wow. We won't even ask.
Yeah, you won't ask.
Our next committee meeting is next Monday, the 27th. Here in this room at 5:30. Our next council meeting, August the 3rd, 7 o'clock, also in this room. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion by Mr. Rickman, second by Mr. Johnson. All in favor, signify by saying aye. We're adjourned. Thank you for coming and thanks for your attendance.